Joe Biden cannot evacuate all those who need to be evacuated from Afghanistan by August 31st. There's less than a week left, and there's 6,000 soldiers which have to be evacuated, excluding the thousands of foreign nationals and Afghan friends of the West which are currently stranded. If all of these people have to be evacuated, the deadline of August 31st must be extended. It's the right and only sane thing to do. But the Taliban has warned the US. Stay a day longer than August 31st and you will regret the overtime forever. If the US wraps up its evacuation campaign without pulling out all eligible people out of Afghanistan, the world community will be furious and G7 will probably rethink its alliance with Washington. And this is just the beginning of all that is set to go wrong for USA in the next 4 years. Hi and welcome. You are watching TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I am your host Sanbir Ranhotra, and in this video I will tell you how Biden is caught between marauding Talibanis and furious G7 nations and how there is no way he can come out of this safely. Let's begin. The desperate evacuation campaign of the United States of America and its allies from Afghanistan has cast a huge dent in the image of Washington as the undisputed leader of the free and democratic world order. Currently, the US has been reduced to an object of global shame and ridicule due to Joe Biden's catastrophic and ill-thought surrender to the Taliban in Afghanistan. The US and its allies had earlier imposed an August 31st deadline on themselves to completely evacuate from Afghanistan. However, operations are lagging far behind as the US struggles to pull out its citizens and Afghan friends from the country, which recently fell to the Taliban. Innumerable people remain stranded in Afghanistan. Just taking into account the number of people at the Kabul airport right now, it would be extremely difficult for the US and other countries to complete evacuation by August 31st. So, the European Union, NATO members, and pretty much every country with citizens still stranded in Afghanistan is seeking an extension of the impractical deadline which Joe Biden imposed without thinking anything through. US House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff has himself said he thinks it is very unlikely the evacuation of people from Afghanistan will be completed by August 31st, given the number of Americans who still need to be evacuated. Meanwhile, the G7 nations are not impressed with Joe Biden's handling of Afghanistan. Leaders in Britain, France, Germany, and other nations are facing domestic outrage due to the glaring mishandling of the Afghanistan pullout by Joe Biden and his administration. So, an emergency meeting of the G7 was held on Tuesday, chaired by UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, to discuss everything related to Afghanistan and the Taliban, apart from the US's failure to act on specific intel which predicted the fall of Kabul much earlier than publicly anticipated. The calling of an emergency G7 meeting is a sign that US's allies are not happy. In the UK Parliament, Joe Biden was officially condemned and held in contempt for failing miserably to deal with the situation in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, an unnamed British cabinet minister told The Times that the US's failure to realize that Afghanistan was on the brink of collapse shows that America is looking inward and is unwilling to do even a modest amount to maintain global order. What the UK and other countries of the G7 and the EU are now firmly demanding is an extension of the August 31st deadline. Further, they want not only their own citizens evacuated from Afghanistan, but also all those who helped the US-led alliance during the 20-year-long inconsequential Afghanistan war. Joe Biden would have obliged, but the Taliban has warned of severe consequences if the evacuation campaign is not completed by August 31st. Now, Joe Biden is stuck between a rock and an extremely hard place. Taliban spokesman Sohail Shaheen told Sky News that staying beyond the agreed deadline would be extending occupation. He added, if the US or UK were to seek additional time to continue evacuations, the answer is no. There would be consequences. If they are intent on continuing the occupation, it will create a reaction. The Taliban is threatening the US and other countries with consequences, and these will definitely involve the lives of innocent foreign nationals stranded in Afghanistan. Who will be held responsible if the Taliban goes on a killing spree after August 31st, with many foreign nationals not evacuated from Afghanistan? Will Joe Biden step down as president? Further, if such a scenario does develop, the US will face a world community that would be infuriated beyond repair. Washington's ties with friends, allies, and partners would simply stand obliterated, and leading the charge against the Biden administration would be the G7. Joe Biden will have to make one choice. Either he will have to extend the evacuation deadline or would have to choose to evacuate as many foreign nationals as possible by August 31st, while leaving the remaining ones to their fate and at the mercy of Taliban's medieval savages. This would alienate the US and it would permanently lose its status as the leader of the free world. Joe Biden would put his country into an isolated spot, and America will lose all that it prides. And if he extends the evacuation deadline, the Taliban will effectuate the fatal consequences it has already warned Biden of. One can only imagine what Joe Biden will reduce the United States into in the next 4 years of his presidency.